All right, Marty Coleman, the initial episode of Juicebox Junkies. With me is Brian Dunleavy. Brian, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing all right now that I'm home and I got my Astros beverage going here. So
Nice. I'm gonna have some Astro beverages after we get off of this podcast. Christian, how you
Yes.
doing,
Hey,
man?
how's it going?
We have been antagonists on climbing Tal's Hill towards each other. We've never met, but
Yeah.
I don't see why any reason we can't be antagonists on this podcast also.
I'm looking forward to it all the way from here. In fact, I'm probably going to antagonize you realizing now that I have a Seattle Mariners hat on during an Astros podcast. So I'm just starting out on the right foot here. So
I was wondering why you had it turned around, but I think now we know, right?
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
That's right. My three hats trump your one hat, so it's all
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, I thought the background might offset the hat. So
It's all good. It's all good. We've been having a few technical difficulties. We've been planning this for a couple of weeks, and about 10 seconds before we went live, my internet went down, and then we lost someone in the transmission there. Hopefully, Matt Conkle will be able to join us back. But our first episode of Juicebox Junkies, we all three, and Matt and Zach, if he ever is able to get on, write for Climbing Tal's Hill. Podcast is not affiliated with Climbing Tal's Hill, but we all got together and thought, hey, what a great idea to put our voices into the podcast universe. These two guys, here, have a much higher level of baseball experience than I do. I crapped out in high school, so it is what it is. So I am looking forward to getting you guys' opinion and thoughts on the Houston Astros this season. And let's see, Matt is back. Matt, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hey, there you go. Matt Kunkel joins the crew. He also writes for Climbing Tal's Hill. We just started, Matt. Let's give a little
Christian.
And we are ready.
You can hear me. Sweet.
We can hear you. We got you. Okay, episode 1. The first and initial topic is going to be the lockout.
And I hear fragments of someone else. That might be Marty.
Yeah, I'm working through it, Matt. We're going to work through this initial agenda here, and the first thing we wanted to talk about was the lockout and the major issues around the lockout. Brian, before we started recording, you were talking about a 7-minute bargaining session.
Yeah, I can't. I can't even imagine. At least knowing the people that I know and work with every day. I mean, 7 minutes. It takes some people I know 7 minutes to say hello. So if it only lasted 7 minutes, I mean that there couldn't have been a lot of good things said in between the two parties. It must have been a pretty one-sided presentation. And then my guess is the owners had their piece and the
I'm
players
only
just said,
hearing
"See ya."
like random sounds.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, that was the first one. The last, the most recent one. It seems like they had a lot more work done. There was a couple hours, of negotiations and talks and stuff, and a lot of topics. So I think there's some progress, but a little scary start off to the negotiations.
Christian, what's your take on the initial negotiations during the lockout? Christian, are you able to hear us?
I think he's muted.
Yeah, so I just think it's I'm pro player right here in this particular instance. I think a lot of people are. And, I realize teams have a certain budget that they have to work in and certain parameters that they have to work through financially. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more when we discuss Carlos Correa later in our episode here. But, I think that it's time that the players got a bigger share of the pie. Their image, their likeness, their marketing, everything is driven around them, their performance on the field. I think, there's an interesting, and I can't remember which reporter had shared it out, but he basically had asked a player, everyone's making millions and millions of dollars, and we're talking about 100 million versus 150 million. What's the difference? 50 million bucks. And so, that's a lot of money, and there's a lot of money on the table here to divvy up. And so, a lot of things to think about in terms of players who don't make those high end contracts, the increase in minimum starting salary and things like that. So yeah, it's a lot of details to work out here, I think.
Okay, we got Matt back. One more time, we're going to try and add him to this stream. All right, Matt, can you hear me? I'm guessing that is no, and you're having technical difficulties. Well, we will roll on anyway. So it appears that the Major League Baseball made some slight improvements yesterday, and I'm generally pro player on this one too. For years and years, I was more on the owner side for the exact reason Christian said. I'm sitting here going, well, these guys are making millions and millions of dollars a year. Why can't they be happy? It's weird because usually when you're young, you're on the player side, and as you get older, you go with the owners. I'm kind of the reverse. I kind of see it more as the player side. But a couple of the offers, Major League, steps in the right direction, I'll call them. They offer to increase the starting minimum salary from $600 to $615. Whoopee, right? The players want $775. MLB is also offering status quo to the arbitration system after previously asking for a formula-based alternative. Currently, players who accrued 3 years of service time are eligible for arbitration. There's still big issues here. Revenue sharing, competitive balance tax that need to be agreed upon. The players want to put an end to the tanking, and so does my kid, by the way. And the sides plan to work on some of the non-core economic issues next. Get those out of the way, the smaller things, before they start tackling the big topics. Anything in there, Brian, that do you see this? How do I say this? Do you see them starting on time, whether that's spring training or the regular season? And I asked that because one estimate I saw said they needed to have an agreement in place by February 1st, which is Tuesday, if they wanted to start spring training on time.
Yeah, I don't think that's anywhere close to possible. Going between different negotiations and things, and the way I look at it, I see is the number one issue, the number one thing they got to address and deal with is around compensation. If you see them starting to get close to the end of compensation talks and agreeing on stuff and finalizing stuff, then we're close. But the fact that they're just so far apart on all these numbers, and I saw one part where they had talked about the bonus pool and the players wanting 105 million and the owners wanting offered 10 million. So I mean that number is not anywhere close to where I think that a middle or even if the players give up a lot more to have it as just a higher number than it currently stands. I think it's going to take a little while to get to that. That along with that minimum salary, that league minimum, I know that's important for the guys, especially to support they know how it is coming out of the minor leagues, making peanuts to try and get to the big show where you're actually going to make a nice living wage. And Marty, to go off what you said too, I mean, I did the math real quick and everybody can call me out on my math, but a 3% increase in the league minimum would be 18, go up to 618,000. So that's not even 3%. And I'm just going to say numbers alone, loving economics and things. I mean, with the inflation rate and everything well above that at 7%, players are losing money at this point. So I think the biggest difference and I'm always on the player side too, as Christian had mentioned, was, the players play for a set amount of time. The owners can own for their life. And so the players have to try and make as much money as they can while they're still in the league. They're active, they're able to, and hopefully pay for all those things, going forward. And and that's why you see a lot of the former players, getting to broadcasting because they need to continue making that revenue and paying for things that get crazy expensive at the end of life, especially in healthcare and things like that when they're broken down from all their injuries. So I don't see a whole lot of progress yet. I mean, there is some, but like we said, February 1st is not going to happen. My hope is that March 1st happens, and then they figure out what to do with spring training and how that's going to look.
Christian, what is your take on February 1st happening or not happening?
I mean, we've got 5 days. 2 of those days are weekends. It's not even possible. I don't think, just considering how far away they are at this point. We're talking February 1st. Even if there's a deal that kind of gets done, it's already kind of creating issues, right? So you're getting 2 weeks of off season if a deal's signed by February 1st. And so, even if it's not even signed by the end of that week, the February 7th, we're going to start cutting into spring training games. And then March 1st is like, if we're not doing something by March 1st, I mean, we're going to be missing regular season games. And so, I mean, we're almost like a month and a few days, and nowhere close. We're talking millions and millions of dollars apart. I mean, I know there's a lot of interesting conversation about rules and rules. Great, those things can be worked out once the numbers are there. Like, I don't think there's going to be a lot of debate on the competitive side of things, just considering how much the league has kind of worked with doing that research and things like that, as far as like robot umpiring and things like that. But it's the money. It all boils down to the money. And if they can figure out how they can somehow share this piece of very large pie, I just don't foresee it happening by February 1st. I don't foresee it happening by mid-February, by Valentine's Day, which is going to cut into spring training games at the very least. And we're talking about an extremely shortened time for pitchers and catchers, a very shortened amount of time for the remaining free agents that are out there. I mean, it's making things pretty wild. And so I don't think anyone, to be honest, I don't get a sense of urgency from anybody. I think they want to, both sides are holding to their guns, and there's no reason to budge yet. And it hurts. I think it hurts both sides for this to start eating away at games. And so I think it's going to become public. It's going to become public and kind of nasty because the blame game's going to start, and they're going to try to, impact the public opinion a little bit. So I'm curious to see how it all plays out, negotiations aside, just timeline. It's almost impossible at this point to get a full spring training in. And we're already looking at spring training games, and realistically, we're looking at regular season games too. So,
okay, well, the next question was going to be, do you think we get to 162 games? But I'll skip that question after you and Brian, the way you answered, and go to Matt. What's your take on February 1st, Matt, and/or regular season games being missed?
February 1st, I mean, to put it in a Disney term, no way in heck. It's gonna cut into the season. I think my gut says they're gonna play this game of chicken, and eventually, I think opening day will be somewhere around Memorial Day. I think it's gonna cut into a significant chunk of the games, but then eventually they'll come to their senses and realize it's hurting the games, and it's not get the season to start on time. So that's my gut.
All right. Brian, do you have a guess on when the season will start? Matt says Memorial Day range. You're on mute.
Sorry, it's so hard to tell at this point from the numbers game and all that stuff. I think it won't be very hard on some of the other issues that Christian was talking about. So I think that'll be pretty quick. But the numbers, I think that's going to last at least another month, and then it's up to them what they decide to do with spring training. I mean, if it was me, as an owner, I hate to put myself in that box or that realm, but They see all their money, I think, mostly from the regular season, and spring training is not as relevant to them. So they'd rather see a truncated spring into a longer, regular season and going forward. So and the players definitely need a spring to warm up and get arms ready and teams gelling and taking a look at prospects. So I'm with Matt. I think you're looking at June, and I think that's best case scenario for where we're at currently. I could see it easily going to 4th of July and playing a half season. I could see that being a simple thing. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but that could be the best thing. I'm just hoping that my MLB TV subscription is a half price too.
I doubt it, right? Because they're fighting over money. They're fighting over your money. Christian, you got the final word here. When do you see the season starting?
Oh man, let's see. The 95 lockout, that was what, 12, 13 games, something like that, I think. And so their timeline was ahead of this current one right now. And so we're looking at, even if they get this agreement by May 1st and then they have a spring training, I don't know, maybe June, early June, they get a opening day around that first week of June. And then you're slated for a 100-game season, maybe. I think this year, I think we're looking at just maybe 100 games, probably like an all-star break around August. It's going to be weird. It's going to be another shortened, odd season. It's going to, if the NFL's season was any indication of how squirrely COVID has treated things too, that's going to exacerbate all of this even more in terms of trying to get players healthy and ready to start a season. And, and once the season starts, I mean, who knows what this, it's going to, one thing for sure, it's going to be an ugly season. So.
And I'll finish this off by saying that'll make 2 out of 3 years where there's been shortened, weird seasons, right? Because of COVID in 2020. So we need baseball. We need it to get back on track. Let's jump to topic number 2 here real quick. Matt, you're up first on this one. Carlos Correa signs with the Boras agency. Improve or make the chances of him signing with Houston, which many people think are already 0. What's that do to the odds of Correa re-signing with the Astros?
Pretty low. I think the nail in the coffin was the Corey Seager signing with the Rangers. I just think that at that AAV and the size of the contract, Correa believes he's better than Seager. I think most of us believe he's better than Seager. We've had no indication that the Astros front office is willing to go with him on the years. So I think with Scott Boras, I think it probably reduced the odds of signing Correa from like 15% to 10%. I can't really put a number on it, but yeah, it definitely doesn't help. Definitely doesn't help.
Brian, your take on Correa with Boras and what that means for the Astros?
It's definitely bad news for any Astros fan. There's no, as what we've seen so far with Click and the way the ownership operates and Click's aversion to long-term contracts and that sort of thing. I mean, Correa, he'll get the money. People will offer him the money. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind about that. The question is where. It's not who, it's where. And if the Astros don't pony up, if there's not a solution in their minds, I even in my amateur status offered a somewhat money saving solution. If you just cut ties with Diaz as the utility guy, bring up Pena, you save a whole bunch of money on that, and use that money at least for the interim. And I know as a GM, a lot of things, and you see a lot of that right now with the NFL season finishing up. Load that contract up with bonuses, with game bonuses, with placement bonuses, and that sort of thing. So he still gets his money, but you don't suffer the cap hit for that as much if you throw those kind of bonuses in there, because it's not the guaranteed money aspect of it. So I mean, that might be a way forward, but I don't think we're gonna sign long term. So I think it's gonna be who are the big money markets, or the people with a lot of cash on hand that are able to sign him and pay the man, because he deserves it. I mean, there's only a handful of shortstops with his talent defensively, and then you look at offensively, the same, turn that around, and now the pool's even smaller. So somebody's going to pay the man, and I hope it's us. I hope we can put it together, but I don't see a real positive move forward. I mean, Boras has his agency has the highest gross average contracts of any agency in the MLB. So it's not looking good.
So it went from not a snowball's chance to zero in your mind. And I think that's where I'm at too. Christian, your take. Now, everybody's agreed with everybody so far. So eventually in this podcast, we've got to have some conflict. I'm not putting you on the spot, but what's your take on the odds of Correa re-signing with Houston after the move to the Boras agency?
Well, I'm going to agree that the chances are extremely low. I mean, Boras already came out, and I think Mark Berman had some quotes from him the other day. This Astros team has been at a championship level for 2 or 3 years and can continue 6 or 7 more if they're able to retain that all-star talent level. And so that right there tells me that Boras is like, I see my client as absolute top tier talent in this league, and he has demanded that for his clients and has got it. So I don't foresee the Astros, conceding any sort of ground on this. If Crane says he's not going more than 6 years, he's not going more than 6 years. And here's the more controversial take is like, I don't want him to. Like, at least so far, we haven't seen any of these mega deals really pan out in a way that really have benefited any of these particular organizations. I mean, I guess you could look at it historically if you look at contracts relative to their size at the time. You could go back and look at when the Giants got sold and they paid Barry Bonds whatever $64 million from the Pirates, which at the time was unheard of and unprecedented, and obviously that paid out. But we're talking generational talent. You also look at Albert Pujols, who is a generational talent, a surefire Hall of Fame, and won the Angels 0 championships. So, do I like Correa? Is he in my heart? Yes. As an Astros fan, sure. But as looking at this from how these mega contracts go, and I just don't know that's worth the risk, especially of all the guaranteed money and it's as much as I would love to say, yeah, performance based contract, it's not going to happen. It's just like someone's going to pay. Like Philadelphia is going to wake up one day and realize, oh wow, the Mets got better. The Braves just won a World Series. We're going to pay Correa all the money he wants to come play in Philly, or Seattle, who's just desperate to make another splash. They're just itching to write a check. So I just don't foresee the Astros doing it at all, nor do I feel like they need to.
So here's you just gave me the episode title, something related to Christian says Correa is not worth it. Something like that that'll get the fans going, Got
to get that clickbait going, man.
Yeah, you absolutely know that. So I think we all four again agree on that the chances are slim to none. And actually, I'm kind of in the boat with you, Christian. I don't necessarily think that it just hurts to see him leave. And I think about all the plays he made last year, and I think about everything that he did for this team and what he's given to them and how good he is. But you're absolutely right. Not only did Pujols not bring a championship to Anaheim, by the end of that 10-year contract, he was broken down. And, you don't see many 36-year-old, which Correa would be at the end of 10 years, right? Or 37-year-old superstar shortstop. So you're going to be paying that guy $36 million, or whatever the average annual AAV is. 10 years from now, and is he going to be worth it? He may be worth it on the front end of that contract to some degree, but not on the back end. All right, we're going to jump to our minor league segment now. Each week or each episode, we want to focus on a minor leaguer. And heck, this year, that might be all we have to focus on, right? This might be nothing but a podcast about finances and minor leaguers. Matt, you brought up the subject that everybody's been talking about for the last 4 or 5 years, Forrest Whitley. And is he going to be anything, or is he going to be nothing baseball-wise? Of course, we're talking about here. I threw up his minor league stats. It's just incredible. The guy's got 24 decisions in 5 years in the minor leagues. But he's still seen generally as one of the Astros' top prospects. Your take on Forrest Whitley?
I mean, he's a top draft pick out of 2016 for the Astros, and it's hard not to fall in love with him. He's 6'7". He's got a great fastball, high velocity, tops out 98, 99 miles per hour. I mean, to me, every time I see him pitch, I think he could be Tyler Glass now 2.0. But, we're Astros fans. We know very well what Mark Appel got us. And, I feel some trepidation with him. He had some issues with his control in the minors, and obviously off-field stuff didn't really help. And now with his Tommy John surgery, he's not going to pitch till 2023. When you look at it, it'll be almost 3 or 4 years in between serious competitive pitching for him. So I wish he had time to work with Brent Schaum on some of his mechanics, but I think at his age, by this time next year, he'll be 25 or 26, and he'll have less than 200 innings pitched in the minor league system. So we don't really have a good evaluation period of what he could be or what he projects to be. So, I mean, that's tough to evaluate. So I still think he's the prize of the farm system. It's just, you're hoping with some consistency on his part and some good fortune, he can grow into maybe a number 3 starter, or even higher. We see him, and we see the best of him, and then we hear and watch the stats on the minor leagues, and we see, he's far off. So that's an interesting one. I don't know what the Astros should do with him other than just hope he can develop in the next year or two.
Seems like the first thing would be to stay healthy, as you said. Just hasn't been able to get on the mound in the last 3 years or so. That seemed like it'd be requirement number 1, to stay healthy and then see what he can do. Christian, your take?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand. I think a lot of fans had question marks because MLB Pipeline and Baseball Prospectus came out with their updated, top prospects, and I think we had 2 in Baseball Prospectuses specifically, but Forrest Whitley was not among them. I can see why the fall from grace. He got batters hit 343 off of him in AAA. He had some issues with control off field, obviously the maturity concerns and off field issues and things like that. But I think that as he works back from his injury and starts to kind of get a rhythm and get back with the organization in terms of his development and pitching in games and just getting those innings, like Matt said, he just needs more time to kind of put a body of work together that we can, as fans and evaluators of the organization, can say, okay, he's somebody to get excited about now. Like, obviously the talent's there at the core, the tools are there as a pitcher, but there's not enough there for really us to say, this guy's a bust or this guy's no good. I mean, we've seen it time and time again, guys who went through Tommy John surgery early in their career and before they even got to the major leagues and have been stellar. So I don't think it's a red flags are there. Maybe yellow flags is what I would call them, but nothing that's like, this guy's a bust. Like, I think I'm encouraged. I'm still excited to see him pitch. And I hope there's an avenue for him maybe not this season, just the way it's shaping out with the big league season, but maybe there is an opportunity for him to at least be with the big league club at some point and get some experience just being around Justin Verlander and some of the younger guys who've just went through what he's about to go through. So,
well, maybe we see him with the Sugarland Space Cowboys this season.
Oh yeah,
Brian, I'm going to let you wrap this up with your thoughts on Forrest Whitley, and we'll end the episode after this. We had a little technical difficulties, and we're a little bit behind. So let Brian wrap it up on this. Forrest Whitley, Brian, your take.
I don't. The problem is there's good and bad about him, right? I mean, he has all the potential in the world, as was mentioned by Matt and Christian. I mean, there's a lot of things to like about him necessarily, just as a figure, but nothing's materialized. That's the problem. The problem is there's no body of work that says, man, this guy is lights out, or look at this potential that's in there. You have to go back several years to see anything good. So I think the last couple of years has really, hurt his overall grade, his overall rating, his value. So I think that's the bad part of it. I don't think the Astros really have much value in trading him. I don't think they're going to get a lot for him because there's what can you say? I mean, he hasn't had a solid season. He hasn't had a solid production year. He's not done anything that says, you know what, other teams are really going to want this guy and to give him a shot because, I'm looking at his last stats. I know that was the year, he got hurt and everything. 7.99 ERA combined for the year with 4 different teams. I mean, that's not going to get you anywhere. I mean, and the years before that weren't like, too amazing that you should look at it and say, man, that's really good, and we want to get this guy. So, my thought is maybe he plays this spring training, is all healed up, and maybe this extra time off with the lockout helps out his injury and his progression and his healing with that. Maybe he has a solid beginning to the year, and my thought is the Astros get as much value as they can out of him if he has a good truncated season this year. Trade him away. I think there's a lot of guys behind him in the pipeline. I wrote about this the other day that have some potential that hasn't quite gotten there yet. I mean, Sean Dubin's got a upper 90s fastball that maybe he gets a better shot or a better look. I don't know. I mean, there's other players in the system that I would rather see get more time and more end of the year time, expanded roster time. I know it's a tiny expanded roster, but maybe they get a shot here and there, maybe an in-between start to give some of the veteran guys time off, and maybe we get a diamond in the rough that way a little quicker than waiting on this project of Forrest Whitley to heal up, get better, get experience. I mean, there's a lot of factors in there. So I say let him increase his value and ship him away and see what we can get in return. I mean, maybe we can get another potential prospect package, or maybe we need one of those guys at the end of the season like we did this year, where we get some bullpen help, because I think our bullpen still it's going to be a question mark again this year with things. So maybe they use him as trade bait again. I just hope that Click this time, if he does trade for people at the whatever time of the season that we play and get people, that he signs them for longer term contracts than just the end of the season and just wasting away all those prospects. I don't see any value in that whatsoever unless you win it all, which we obviously did not do that this year, and our pitching staff struggled. So hopefully we can do that and get maybe some longer term deals out of some guys and using him as trade bait. That's the only value I see as with him right now.
Yeah, it's funny. That's what I've been telling my son, is that they don't have anybody to trade anymore. They've traded everybody worth anything. There's not really anything to trade for. Well, Brian, Matt, Christian, thank you for episode 1. Really struggled at the beginning with some technical issues. We'll get all those cleaned up. I was telling you guys before we started, 78 podcasts I've done, never had that problem before. We jump on to have this one. All kind of problems. 3 out of 5 of us, I think, had problems. One never even made it. We finally got Matt in, but really enjoyed it. All 4 of us write for Climbing Talus Hill. Please check it out. Podcast not associated with Climbing Talus Hill, but we like the site. We like writing for it. We're going to be here all summer. Talking Astros, guys. Until next time, thank you very much, and I'll see you on Climbing Towels Hill.
Take care.
Thanks, Marty.
Yeah.